Good evening. My name is Steve Seitz, and we're wrapping up a busy day at Book Talk here with my special guest, I'd have to say, Amy Patricia Meade. She is an author out of Vermont. She writes mysteries, as do I, but hers are a little bit different. So we'll get things going by Amy telling us a little bit about yourself and about your work.
Well, thank you for having me here, first off. I write murder mysteries, as Stephen said, but they are cozy mysteries. So not a lot of gore, not a lot of gratuitous violence or sex. I leave some things to the imagination. I think they tend to have a more cinematic bent. There's a lot of dialogue, a lot of character-driven plots, and they're historical too. I do have a modern mystery series set in Vermont. The first of which is well off in Vermont. But the remainder of my books are pretty much historic. The first series, the Marjorie series, which will be re-released soon.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
Yeah, I read the first two. I like them quite a bit.
They're fun. It's lighthearted. It's a beach read. They are set in Depression-era Connecticut, and there's a little bit of romance, a little bit of comedy, and of course a generous helping of murder. And then the Rosie the Riveter series, and I have the first one here.
Okay, by all means hold it up for a second so people can see it.
There you go.
You know, like safe to say in bookstores now?
Oh, has been for a little while.
Oh, good.
And the second one shall be coming out shortly.
Well, tell us a little bit about, well, you told me once that you got into this through watching old movies with your grandfather.
I did, actually. We watched the Thin Man series, and if you read the Marjorie series, there's a lot of the Thin Man and that sort of quick wit and banter and double entendres and all of that in there. So
yeah, nobody does that anymore.
They don't.
Dialogue is a lost art these days.
It is. It is. There's a lot of explosives and planes and guns and not a lot of witty dialogue.
That is most unfortunate. Yeah. So now tell us a little bit about how you go about, well, which idea becomes the book? I know the stupid question is, where do you get your ideas? And I always used to say, well, there's this company called Johnson & Smith in Akron, Ohio.
Did they do mail order?
That's how they actually. There's a little bit of, you know them, of course. They used to sell these insane gadgets that cost too much and never worked, but we love the catalogs.
There you go. It's like Brookstone nowadays.
But right? I don't know about you, but I've got a trunk full of half-baked ideas and first chapters that went nowhere, things like that. How do you decide which to finish?
It's funny. I have a book, not a trunk. Of ideas, and they just pop in your head, and it's funny, every now and then when you come up with a new idea, you go back to one of your old ones and they just kind of mesh. It's a strange process, and you never know where you're going to be, what you'll be doing. You'll be cleaning your bathroom per se, or doing dishes, and all of a sudden something pops in your head and you say, that would be a great idea. But there's a lot that are still haven't made it to the notebook that are swimming around in the brain.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure that you're the same too.
Pretty much. Actually, until I had a recent accident with my leg, I through the Holiday Inn Express here has a great swimming pool. And one of the things you do while you're flailing around in the water is plot out stories.
There you go.
My current project is a collection of Sherlock Holmes short stories.
Oh, very nice.
It had started out as a novel, but I realized the original idea wasn't strong enough to sustain an entire book.
So that's a good way to use up those odds and ends in the trunk, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. But do you write short stories?
I don't, actually. I think I'm a little too verbose. I don't know why. I've never kind of found that knack for short stories. I've written things with the intention, and then they just keep going and get meatier as they go along.
I'm like that too. I would much rather just develop the whole thing,
right,
than just a day in the life of.
Well, that's exactly it. That's a good way to describe it.
So what are you working on? What's the sequel here?
The sequel? Well, sequel to Rosie the Riveter, the second Vermont book. So the plan is to re-release the Marjorie series. There's 4 books in that series. Then release the first of the Vermont series and basically build up momentum, get the ball rolling again, and bundle things up, offer little package deals. And then I'm working on a standalone mystery, which I've been putting a lot of time into. So
Are you publishing these yourself?
I am now, yes. So it's exciting.
And what is the difference? I mean, you've had traditional publishers.
I have.
You know, my Sherlock Holmes stuff has a publisher in London, but you know, the promotion there is almost all social media. Where I'm a Luddite. I bump my head up against the cave of social media. I don't know about you, but if I talk a lot. So if we're on a conversation, you know, I belong to all the James Bond groups on Facebook. And so while I'm supposed to be selling books, wait a minute, that did not happen in Goldfinger.
It's distracting, right?
Yes.
How do people waste time before the internet? That's exactly it. What did you do when you wanted to procrastinate?
I used to be a federal bureaucrat, and I don't remember.
You'd think you would.
No, that was 30 years ago. I don't want to go back there.
It was like yesterday. The difference between self-publishing and traditional publishing, I'm not in it that far to tell you, but right up front, I can tell you, you have more autonomy. But this book here was published by Kensington Books, and although they were great to work with, I had a different title than what they gave it. The cover art was something completely out of the blue. It doesn't really describe what happens in the book. So starting there, more autonomy. You can say, look, I want this cover or that cover. This title I think makes sense, and I'm open to suggestions. If an editor thinks they have a better idea, and I think it is, then sure. But that's the first step, I think. And I'm also working, even though I'm self-publishing, I'm using my agent's company Beyond the Page. So
I see.
I still have representation and still have the say-so, but they handle the finances, and it's good, and the promotion as well.
A lot of people out there would like to know how you go about even getting an agent, especially if you're not in New York.
Right. You don't have to be in New York, especially now with the internet and email. It's basically, it's arduous. You just plow through it. But the first step is, if it's fiction, you need to finish the book. You don't sell the idea. If it's nonfiction, you can certainly sell the idea, but you need to do your homework and write out a whole proposal. And same goes with the completed novel, fiction. You have to have that completed, and you have to submit a synopsis. And that's how much I love synopses. Can't even say the word. You send out what's called a query letter saying, this is my book, this is why I think it will do well, this is the audience who I think will like this book. Find other books that are in the similar genre as yours and have some similar characteristics, and see how they did in the market, and say, okay, based upon the success of this book and that book, I think this one will do well. You really have to sell it.
In other words, you have to do a lot of market research and legwork.
You do, and legwork. And then once you submit your queries, and unfortunately, even though there's email, a lot of agents still like paper. So you send out your query letters, and you just hope for the best and cross your fingers and send it out into the universe, keep on writing, and just there you go.
Do they still demand that you send it to one agent at a time?
Some do, which is
that has
aggravating.
Always struck me
It
as
is. It is.
It's counterproductive too, because
you're wasting time.
Yeah, you don't know who's going to say yes. You do know that most of them will say no.
You do.
So I would personally find out who's going to say yes first.
Right. It is aggravating, and I have to say I didn't really stick to that all the time. And there's actually, I don't know if you used it, the Jeff Herman Guide to Literary Agents.
No, I haven't
which
yet.
Details every agent and their genre, their preferences, and they tell you there whether they want an exclusive reading
I will
or
have
not.
to. I will have to do
It's a good book. Yeah, I'll give you the title. It's very helpful, and I would actually recommend it to anyone who hasn't been published before. It's just a lot of useful information, and the updated version even has about self-publishing as well.
I just got back from Atlanta, Georgia, where I attended a Sherlock Holmes convention. I had a great time. And in fact, I first met you. Geez,
That's
how long?
right.
That was 8 years ago.
That was 8 years ago.
Malice Domestic.
Yes, it was in Arlington, Virginia.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, where I raised my son.
Ah,
That was a homecoming trip for me on top of everything else.
that's nice.
Do you do a lot of conventions?
I haven't recently. It's one of those, we'll tell other writers and make them aware that a lot of times when you go to these conventions, you have to pay for them out of your own pocket.
Yeah.
Most publishers don't pay for you to go to conferences and conventions. They might give you a stipend. My Midnight Ink, my last publisher, sent me to a conference in Philadelphia and paid for the hotel, and that was very nice. But 9 times out of 10, when you do that sort of circuit, you have to pay for it out of pocket. And of course, we're not making a huge profit here, so you usually have a day job.
Oh,
so.
yeah. And just so you all know, you better be really, really successful to get somebody to pay for your book tour. Otherwise, you do it yourself.
Yes, you do. It's a DIY, which is fine.
Oh, yeah.
And as you said, social media and the internet has made that, I think, less necessary than it did in the past.
That's true, too.
The conferences are great, and it's great to network with other writers, but I don't know, I tended to try to go to those conferences where there were a lot of readers, and Malice is one of them.
Yes.
There's a lot of readers who are buying books, and Book Expo.
And that is a very well-run convention, I have to say.
It is.
Yeah,
they do a
I've
great
been
job.
to super professional Star Trek conventions that were complete train wrecks. But those ladies, they know what they're doing.
Oh, they do. They do a great job. Great job. So, so the conferences, there you go.
So, anything, are you going to get back into that, or you got any events planned?
Eventually. Right now it's just getting more books out there and writing and having fun with it and enjoying the new project. It's always great when you start one, right? It's new characters and new ideas, so starting off fresh.
Do your characters do what mine do and just do what they want?
Yes, they do. They have a mind of their own. And sometimes if you're not careful, they kind of write you into a corner, and then you go, okay, let's back that up.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, well, my next mystery, which is almost finished, although right now my wife and I are arguing over the title. She doesn't like my title.
Uh-oh.
And, I don't know if you use this system, but but I always make sure my wife, the English literature professor, goes over every line before because I didn't know how to really do this before I met her. And she knows all the rules.
There you go.
And I did not.
That could be good and could be very bad.
Yeah.
So you're arguing over the title.
Yeah.
She didn't give it the thumbs up.
No, well, she also hasn't finished going over this version of the manuscript yet. I tightened it up for her. But that's what you got to do. You need that outside reader, and especially that outside proofreader.
Absolutely, you do.
I do all my best proofreading after I hit send.
And then the face pump, yeah.
And then you get these brickbats from editors later. What were you thinking?
But that's why they're there. They're doing their job. And most of them are fairly kind. They'll say, did you mean this or that? Or, I don't envy their job. I really don't. That's a tough one.
I consult with other people writing. I've been doing it long enough. I can edit really with no problem. And then I found out my last client, he was kind of recalcitrant though. He wanted the book to be good, but he didn't want to do any rewriting, so we had to struggle with that.
That's I would say that's conflicting opinion there.
I wound up cutting out about 100 pages. That alone will do it.
How big was this?
It came in. It clocked in at 542 pages, and I managed to, not just cutting out entire passages and all that, but just tightening up sentences.
And got 100 pages out of it.
A lot of people think for some reason it seems natural for people talking and write in passive voice, and that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I had to change everything to active. Do you have to keep editing yourself a lot as you go?
I do. Actually, my process is that when I start my writing day, I kind of go back to a few paragraphs, sometimes a chapter or two, to kind of, first it helps you to kind of get your groove back, for lack of a better term, and pick up where the plot is and get in that headspace again. But it also helps you to tighten things up, and you catch your typos and you polish things, and that's how I operate, at least, and it works. It works.
Are you do you work from an outline? or do you just have the general idea and
No,
let
I
it grow?
hate outlines. I don't know. And most writers I talk to, you either love outlines and you embrace them fully and you detail them and number them and everything, or you rebel against them. And I'm the latter.
Yeah. Do you ever know, do you ever have the whole book out? Does the book, when you finish it, ever resemble the book you began?
Yes, usually.
Usually.
There might be some twists and turns around the way, but I always start with a clear vision of where I'm going. Like,
Yeah.
Of course, it's a cozy, so it's you
Yeah.
have your dead body, and you need to know who did it.
For those
Otherwise,
for those viewers who aren't familiar with the term, could you elaborate a little bit on what a cozy is?
cozy is it's. I'll use an example as Agatha Christie is the classic, the old manor house. You have a set cast of characters. And as I said before, there's not a lot of gratuitous sex violence. You won't have, there might be a little blood.
Well, and sometimes it's kind of hard to avoid with a dead body.
Yes. And that's
But no graphic description of it all.
no, nothing, no CSI involved, let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, CSI has done too much damage.
It has, which I actually enjoy writing these because it is kind of a getting back to basics instead of pursuing the CSI angle with all these forensics and this and that. And so it's more personality driven.
My own detective is a crime reporter because I am a crime reporter. And so, because I think CSI makes things too easy.
It does.
Because my reporter's name is Ace. Ace can't get that kind of information. He can't go down to the lab.
And
He can't run a plate. He has to do it all by talking to people and piecing the facts together, which is what I think detective stories are supposed to do.
that's what I think too. Yeah, there is something, but I guess there is something to the forensic aspect, and
Well, it can hardly be avoided.
right.
But in my first one, it's talking with Ace is talking with a coroner about why it took so long to get the victim identified, and that provided a key piece of information for the story and the story's direction. I'm finding that slipping that in without anybody noticing, that's the hard part for me, because I think anything I'm doing, they can see a mile away. Do you have that feeling?
Yes. Sometimes I go, oh boy, that's really obvious. Okay, Amy, we need to